they're completely gone. I haven't seen any tree with marulas yet. So there must be a couple of trees hidden in the blocks. And David has never tasted a marula before. So yesterday I was out trying to find him a marula to taste. Do you think he'd eat one of these? Should we just wash it and then just not tell him? Play a wild earth trick on him? No, shame, that wouldn't be very nice. Kirst obviously says she agrees. But yes, no, we won't do that. I think that would be quite nice if they haven't been munched open. And there was something else, seen as though Tristan's been doing quite a bit of tracking while he's been on bushwalks, and I've actually been slacking a little bit with track, so I thought, why not catch up? And there's a very interesting track. It's actually very, very, very faint, but you can see it going along here, little holes in the ground. Can you see that? So I have a quiz. Who has made this track on the ground? I'll just outline it for you. So it's in there. Who has done that? And this should be a clue as well as to who was making these tracks. So hashtag Safari Live with your answers, and I look forward to hearing what your guesses were like. This elephant was very busy though. Maybe it's Daryl. Daryl likes this road. We've seen him here a couple of times. He even pulled out this Welfaria plant. He bit it. It's all sticky from his saliva. You can see there's lots of sand on here too. He was smelling it with his trunk, and he didn't even eat it. He didn't even do anything. I'm trying to see if he maybe... Nope, didn't pull the bulb off, so we'll throw that back to the road. He's wasteful. James's caterpillars would have found that delicious. But let me find a nice big footprint for you. I think we've walked over them all here. Let's go up a little bit further. Here we go. Here's a nice big elephant track, and you can see with my soggy shoes that I can firmly stand in it. So the track goes... I didn't know I could draw circles very well with my feet. That's a new talent that I've just worked out. Fantastic. I'll be showing that off this morning. Look at that. Quite a big elephant track and going down that way. So we may stumble across him. I also am thinking maybe it isn't Daryl, because we saw that Daryl was in must, so he was dribbling urine quite heavily. So you'd get that smell coming off of the dung, and also you would see a dribble trail going along the ground. It sounds really silly, but they just leak that much urine in one go. We haven't had any luck with the lion tracks. I'm just trying to remember things that I was supposed to update you about, and I don't know, perhaps those lion tracks that we had were the same ones that James had crossing out. You never know. Oh, we've got some answers for our quiz coming through. Oh, and well done, Consulting Detective and Winter Prism. You were fantastic. You did such a great job. You've both guessed correctly. What is wrong with me? I need to... And then maybe I'll speak better now. I don't know why I'm tangling up my words more than I normally do. But you said dung beetle. Congratulations, that is correct. And that's the important thing about tracking, and we've all reiterated it quite a bit, is that if you come to a track, don't just look at the track. Look what's happening around you. So that was an easy one. Even if you didn't know what a dung beetle track looked like, you could see that what animal comes right up to dung and moves directly through the middle of it, and then off it goes. There's not many creatures that do that. You can see there are quite a few flies about, but a fly wouldn't leave a big track like that. And sometimes you even see the little tire tread. Almost looks like I've got hiccups. The little tire tread from the dung beetles pushing their ball away. Now, I didn't quite hear what Kirst said James has, but it sounded very exciting. So we better very quickly go across to him.
There are some Nyala, and we're sitting very quietly listening to see if we can't hear those elephants or distressed buffalo or whatever it is else there is out here. But I'm afraid at the moment there is nothing but a very peaceful and very pleasant sound of the ring-necked dove calling, some white-crowned chagras, white-crowned, black-crowned chagras, sorry. And then reports, which we are going to go and follow up on now, of Thandi and Thamba, aka Bigglesworth, the big ears, not too far off, well, in fact, quite a long way off to the east of where we are, basically halfway to Cheetah Plains. I think we're going to give up in this area now. There is one other thing I want to look at, simply because I'm not sure what it is, and because the reports have been so garbled around this area as to what's going on that I think we could spend all day knocking about here and not come up with anything. Look at this rather remarkable plant. What do you think this is, Herman?
Looks awfully lot like some weed, eh?
It looks like weed, does it, Herman? I mean, I wouldn't know what you're talking about. This is, in fact, something called Hibiscus cannabinus. So named, at least Herman, because it does look a little bit like marijuana, I'm told, or cannabis sativa. But I have never seen one anything like this size. And I think that's very much on account of the fact that there's been so much water. It's massive. They're normally only about 2 feet tall, everybody. This one is about, well, it's pretty much 5 feet and 8 inches tall, actually. Yes. And on the top, Polyrachus the ant. You see Polyrachus there, Herman?
Yeah.
And she's looking for, well, I suppose, bits and pieces of... There's quite a lot of moisture on here, and so I wonder if it doesn't produce a sweet sap, perhaps. That's an enormous example, and they do produce very beautiful yellow flowers. So what we're going to do is head off towards the east and see if we can't see. I've never met Bigglesworth, Tumble, that enormous eared little male leopard, so that's what we'll try and do. We're going quite far from there now, though. Alrighty, on we go. Herman, I set you up there slightly, and you fell into the trap in a beautiful fashion. Thank you very much for that. Dina, you say, do any animals like to eat those plants, the Hibiscus cannabinus? A huge number of animals. I'll tell you why. They've got quite nasty spikes on them. Not that would pierce your skin, but it's a little bit like really harsh Velcro. And so I think that probably puts a lot of animals off eating them. I'm not sure of toxins and things that may or may not be present in the plant, but I don't know how many. I've never actually seen a browser eating them. That said, you know, a lot of the plants here that do contain toxins, the animals have evolved to cope with. And it's a constant evolutionary arms race, is the cliche that people use. And one of the examples was just the very last view you had of that Nyala there. It was eating some Strychnos madagascarensis, which is a relatively toxic plant. It's got strychnine in certainly the seeds of the fruit. And I know that if you get cut by the branches and the sap gets into your skin, it can create quite a reaction. And, you know, it's obviously not at all. So they've evolved to cope with those chemical defensive mechanisms in the same way that they've evolved to cope with tannins that many of the plants produce. And not all animals would be able to do that, especially the grazers. The grazers are not very good at dealing with chemical defensive mechanisms. Yes, I've now officially given up on this block. I can't hear the elephants, I can't see them. Do we know if David went across to the hyena den or not? He did, and no one was home. Oh, look at this. This is my favourite little pan, and I'll tell you why. It's my favourite little pan because the water is so beautifully clear. And it is so beautifully clear on account of the fact that it has filtered up through this little sort of seep line and flowed down here. Isn't it gorgeous? It's very, very pretty. And I'm just trying to look to see if there are any frogs or perhaps some water striders and that sort of thing. Ooh, what have we got here, David? We have got a great collection of dead bells. Can you see them here? Can you see where my finger is? There's a great bubbling mass of tadpoles there.
Yeah, I can see them.
There must be, I don't know, 200 of them packed tightly. There's obviously a great algal bloom that they're eating the algae out of here. That's very exciting. I don't know what kind of tadpoles they are. Of course, tadpoles are my very favourite things these days. And this is about the size. They're about an inch long, just over an inch. That's about the size that mine got to before I released them, and they then sort of stopped growing, unfortunately. With any luck, those ones will be a little bit more successful. Good. On we go. Ted Bear. We also did check, of course, past that Mvubu Road hyena den, but there was nothing going on there, I'm afraid. I do hope that Ribbon, who has given birth to 2 little cubs, which I'm very excited to meet, hasn't moved off somewhere else. I suspect she was just out foraging. The Thandi and her cub are no, nothing. Sorry, we had some black screen. I apologise for that. So Thandi is on the southern boundary. So I'm not going to guarantee a sighting, but at the moment she's still there. So hopefully we'll be lucky. The day is extremely bright.
Hello, sorry about that. Gremlins. They're attacking us. There we go, done, just to make up for, of course, that little nonsense that the gremlins are causing this morning. It's ridiculous. I'll get my stick out if they're not careful. Actually, I'll get my sword out, my ninja sword, and then they'll be in a lot of trouble. Don't really have a ninja sword. We actually just heard, literally 2 seconds ago, we heard an elephant rumble. So I presume that it's this elephant here, the one that we saw the feces, we saw the Weltheria that it ripped out of the ground, and we're still hot on the heels of this bull. So I did hear him. He gave that sort of low rumble noise, but we'll see. We're upwind of that elephant at the moment, not upwind, we're downwind of that elephant at the moment. So sometimes the wind can also make sound travel quite a bit, so you could think that it was closer, but in this case I actually think that maybe he's just off into the distance in the thicket. But it'll be a good area, because just as we pass over here it opens up quite nicely, which is quite exciting. We'll have a look. Michael, now speaking of Daryl, my favorite elephant in the whole world, you're wondering how Daryl got his name. It was a weird case. So when I was guiding down at Sabi Sabi at Earth Lodge, one of the chef's names was Daryl, and he's one of my really, really good mates. And I don't know, we always used to talk about Daryl and this particular group of guests. This is where I think it's come from. Just loved Daryl the chef so much. And then we saw this massive elephant, and I said that we see him on a regular basis. I showed them all the videos of my encounters with him, and then he didn't have a name. He was just the elephant with the bell shape cut out of his ear type thing. Everybody knew him. He caused havoc up here. He didn't really cause too much havoc down that side, except pulling all the plants out of the garden and blocking us and not allowing us to get out of the bomas. So we saw him And we'd seen him a couple of days in a row, and then my guest just said Daryl. His name's Daryl. And they called him Daryl, and then the name started spreading around the lodge. So we all call him Daryl now, and now it is Daryl. I don't know if he looks like a Daryl, but he doesn't really respond to his name at all, like the rest of the animals don't respond to their name. But yeah, so it's kind of just stuck now. And it's just one of those things that randomly happen. But I love him. I think he's the most wonderful elephant in the whole world, not when he's a must. Any elephant, bull and must, is not fantastic. And he's never given me an inch of trouble. But he doesn't recognize me, which upsets me a little bit, considering I spent every single day seeing him and talking to him over conversations we used to have. It was so lovely. At the swimming pool, you know, he's sprayed us a couple of times. He'll drink from the swimming pool, and then you'll be sitting on the other side. I've been in the pool when he's been there to come and drink, and he doesn't really care. He just says, I don't mind, you keep to the corner, I'm just going to have a sip over here. And if you are a little bit concerned of animals drinking chlorinated water, don't be. Animals are not silly, so if they feel as though they can drink something, and elephants like particularly clean water, they will. But they're also not not drinking 120 liters worth. So you might find that it initiates the stomach to work a bit harder. I'm sure really make them too ill. Look at your dogs at home. If you've got a swimming pool, you have a bowl of lovely fresh water right next to their kennels or next to their food bowls, but of course they'll choose to drink from the swimming pool every single time. And like I said, animals are not stupid. They're not going to do something that would harm them, so they're fine. They're right. We had a giraffe down in the Eastern Cape. You can ask David. You got to do me a favor. Say, David, please tell us about the giraffe named Diggler. He was named after Dirk Diggler. So you've got to ask him about that, and he'll tell you about the giraffe. But I had an encounter with Diggler the giraffe drinking from one of my guests' swimming pools. We're going to keep searching for this elephant. I think he's in here somewhere. I can't see his tracks anymore. He's gone off the road. Hopefully we'll find him, and we'll have something cool to show you. It's perfect weather to do an approach. But I'm going to send you across to James, who seems to be following in my footsteps today, and he's found my favorite herd of zebra.
I think this is exactly the herd of zebra that Tayla had. I think that is correct. And they're relatively confiding, aren't they? They're a wonderful group. And what's so nice to see when they're in an area like this, where it's open and you can see them all standing together, you can see the social dynamics at play. And Herman, if we can start at the front. There we go. That, in theory, should be the oldest female, the oldest mare, leading the herd from the front. And it is, in fact, a mare. Good, I managed to spot that. I saw her two inguinal teats, as they're called. If we go behind from there, there's a younger, probably just about independent offspring of one of these mares, I think. Unless it's a very young wife, but I mean that's a yearling, or at least sort of, I'd say a sort of 18-month-old. And then another little one just behind. And then scattered in amongst the rest will be the other wives. There's the younger wife coming into picture now, quite possibly the mother of that little one. And I think at least another two wives, and then another few offspring soon to become independent. And then the stallion is actually not in view right now. I can see him. He's behind a bush, though. He's over there. You see him there. And there he is. And he's bringing up the rear. There we go. Stanley, what a very nice question, and I mean it brings up one of my very favourite subjects. You say, how are they different from horses in terms of behaviour? Well, Tayla isn't the only sort of horsewoman. Well, she's the only horsewoman around here. I was a horseman at one stage of my life, I don't think I was quite as accomplished as Tayla was, but it does mean that I have some insight into horse behavior. And you say, what is the difference in their behavior? The herd structure, as far as I understand it, is actually very similar. So wild horses tend to be in a similar harem structure with a stallion and his mares, and he can then get challenged and chased off, and his mares can be kidnapped by other males. That tends to be a little bit different here, where the males, I've read, and I haven't seen this, so I can't tell you for sure, but I've certainly read that the males will keep their kinship group or harem for life. So even if they get beaten up by a younger, more virile version, their wives won't leave them, but their daughters will go off with the challenging male. Now, I don't know if that happens in wild horses. The most important, or most interesting, I think, behavioral difference, of course, is that because zebras evolved with human beings in Africa, they don't like us. And they are dangerous if you get into close confines with them, with the consequence that they have never been effectively domesticated. There have been one or two examples where eccentric people have managed to tame the odd individual so that it can be used as a sort of draft animal. And apparently there was a lord in the early days of the Cape Colony who had his carriage drawn by zebras through the streets of Cape Town. But that would have probably cost him quite a lot in the way of, shall we say, staff morale. I guarantee you the staff who were assigned to looking after the zebra were various states of black and blue from the bruises, cuts and bites that afflicted them from the zebras, which are vicious when it comes to sort of their domestication. So that's the obvious difference between horses and zebras. Zebras are not domesticatable. And while that is an interesting fact, the most interesting consequence of it, interestingly, is that the wheel was never invented in Africa. And we think that that has had a large amount to do with, because let me just explain that. It's going to be quite difficult for you to understand if you haven't been following my logic. But what happens is that an animal that pulls something, a draft animal, eventually, we think that this is how it started. In the Fertile Crescent, we had animals, it wasn't horses at that stage, it was actually cows, or aurochs, which were the original cows. They were used as draft animals to pull plows. That eventually led to the invention of the wheel. Now, in Africa, we didn't have draft animals because buffalo will kill you, and so will zebra. And that meant that the wheel was never invented here, and that meant, of course, that technology that came from having a wheel was never invented in Africa. And so, quite apart from Africa being backward, which many people have the impression of, it wasn't backward in the slightest. It was faced with a completely different set of situations, which meant that the wheel and therefore advanced technology just simply was never invented here. That's a story I've told a few times, but not for a while. Very nice. Let us try and... Oh, yes, they do, Sid. There are two interesting aspects to this. You say, do male zebra kill any foals that aren't their own? Yes, infanticide is quite a big thing in zebra society. We've actually watched it here. Viam and I were on foot once, and we saw a horrific sight of a male zebra kicking a little baby until he broke its leg, kicked it in the head, knocked it out, and that was eventually just sort of dragged off by hyenas. So that was quite nasty to see. They do engage in infanticide. They will also kill the young of other animals that are distress calling, because that attracts predators. So they can be very nasty indeed. And interestingly, and this is, I think, probably a little bit of conjecture, but they reckon that the equids have evolved they've got sort of outlandishly sized penises. they're baseball sized. And one of the reasons for that is that they reckon during the mating process that the evolution, because there's no real reason that they need to be that large, but they may have some role in disturbing the pregnancy or perhaps the conception from another male. So if a male has mated with a female, the sort of size of the male member, as it were, it's very difficult to have a genteel conversation about something like this, plays some role in either ending the pregnancy or removing the embryo from a recently mated female, which was quite interesting too. Deborah, you say, do zebras have any endearing qualities? There's a very dark young kudu. Deborah, yes, I think they're very beautiful, for example. But endearing tends to mean sort of confiding, gentle characteristics that would appeal to us as human beings. And, well, you know, they look after each other. They do a lot of allo grooming, if you like. I'll tell you what is quite endearing is that the male is very defensive of his harem, so he will look after them, and he'll defend them against lion attacks. And I think the defensive strategies are actually quite effective because, yes, they do get eaten, of course, in various places, but very seldom out here. You know, we don't see a huge number of zebra kills here, and if we do, it's normally a youngster that's been separated from the herd. So those males are very defensive. Isn't that lovely? Alrighty, we're going to drive at quite a speed now towards the east. While we do that, David apparently has got something that likes to kill from the ether.
It just left. Okay, we had a brown snake eagle, but unfortunately it just flew off, so we just missed it. And a brown snake eagle is actually quite a common bird in this area, but again, in the Eastern Cape, totally different ball game. And to be honest, I actually photographed one about 3 weeks ago, which we believe to be one of the first brown snake eagles to be seen in the area and photographed in quite a long time. So it is a very special bird to me, but here it is quite a common residence and quite a common sight. And so I was really excited to show you that brown snake eagle, but unfortunately it just flew off. Now, snakes are possibly one of my favorite creatures. I've loved snakes and kept them since I was a small boy. And so certain birds like snake eagles and secretary birds, it's a difficult one for me because we know what they eat. And so when you see a brown snake eagle or a secretary bird busy, taking on or killing and catching their favorite prey, I often have the need to jump out and go rescue the snake. I think I might be alone on that one. I think most people would appreciate the good work that the eagle's doing. But yeah, that's it. And a brown snake eagle, of course, has got those really large, tough scales on its lower tarsus, on its lower leg, which of course will help to protect it in the event that it does receive a bite from a snake. Okay, so we lost our brown snake eagle, so we're going to move on now. We're going to continue driving and see if we can find something else. Alright, Captain Awesome, you've asked what kind of snakes have I looked after. Well, as I said before, I started off with a local species. I caught my first puff adder when I was 5 years old, and I actually started keeping a brown house snake. It was the first snake that I properly kept and looked after. But in the Cape Town Zoo where I worked, we had almost everything that the world had to offer, from rattlesnakes, water moccasins, pythons, anacondas. But still, for me, the most dangerous snake and exciting snake that I've ever handled or worked with is still the black mamba. The black mamba for me is the ultimate snake. It is big, it is fast and unpredictable. And so, yeah, I'd have to say a black mamba stands out for me as a really special snake. And again, we don't get them in the Eastern Cape, and we do get them here. And so I am so excited to try and find a black mamba. That would be really cool. Okay, Tayla sent through a question. I didn't know she was allowed to do that. And she wants to know about, or she would like it if I told you guys about Diggler. So Tayla and I used to work together at a game reserve in the Eastern Cape. And there was this very large giraffe called Diggler. And Diggler was the resident giraffe to the main lodge where we both worked. And to be honest, my first encounter with Diggler was quite an interesting one. I just arrived. I had to be on time to get to afternoon drive, and as I came out of my accommodation, I was in a big rush. I just grabbed my stuff. I was running to the bay to join the other rangers on my first drive, and I grabbed the door. As I came out of that door, Diggler was standing outside my door with his bum towards me, and I ran straight into his bum, and he kicked out backwards and kicked me right back into the house again on my butt. I was flat on the ground. And he got such a fright, he jumped forward into a big bush. And so that was actually my first experience with this big male giraffe called Diggler. And Diggler earned quite a reputation for himself. He was the main breeding bull of that area, producing most of the calves. And I think it was just his personality that stood out from all other giraffe. Diggler was the only giraffe that would come right into the staff camp, into our accommodation, and just like my experience running into his backside, I think many other rangers had similar encounters with Diggler, and so he became quite a legend, and unfortunately passed away about a year ago. But yeah, Diggler is a real legend of a giraffe. Okay. We are rolling. We are going to see, we're approaching a waterhole now. And just like I told you with the giraffe, after feeding in the morning, what comes after breakfast is a drink. And so this is often the time of the morning when you'll find animals coming down to the waterhole to have a bit of a drink to wash down the food that they have picked up. Okay. Sorry, I think we've just lost comms, and we are going to send you back to Tayla.
Hello everybody. My earpiece, I got such fright, my earpiece almost fell out of my ear. Now, we've just stopped here, we're trying to find our elephant, but I don't know where he is. I suspect he's in this block just behind us, but the vegetation has become quite thick. I don't want to go walking in there. I was hoping he was going to be a little bit more out into the open, but have a look at this termite mound. It's a little bit more of a different one. Typically we see the big massive mounds that the large fungus growing termites create. This one is not quite at that stage yet. Now they've started to develop it on the road, so I wonder if this is not going to dwarf this mound and inhibit it from getting to its sort of height that some of those mounds can reach. But you can definitely see a big bubble in the middle of the road here, and it is active, in case you're wondering. It's because you can see these tunnels, these chimneys, not massive chimneys, they've adapted their mound slightly so they don't come up very high, they're sort of lower down in the ground. But I can tell that it's new, that they've been working on it, because look how soft that is. You can see how the different colors between the hard ground that's been baking in the sun versus the stuff which is quite new. So I just think that that's really amazing, and it'll be an interesting one to watch over the next few years to see if it does actually get any bigger, or if it's just going to stay small like this and predominantly underground. There's a tick coming for me. Get away! And you see it is coming straight towards my shoe. Let's see if it's going to climb on. No, it's just gone underneath. But walking about looking for an animal to jump onto, and hopefully it's not going to be Craig or I. We'll leave the tick. But yes, don't like the ticks. They're not fantastic. Did you catch that one? Just slipped that in subtly there. I'm so clever sometimes. It's amazing. I have a joke for you. An Afrikaans joke. So in South Africa there's many different languages. And let's see if there's any South Africans that are watching today. So I apologize for the rest of you that aren't from South Africa. You got a hashtag Safari Live with your answers. What do you call a tick on a gate? We'll just see. We'll see. Kirst, can you get this one? Let's see if Kirst can get it. You can't check on the interweb either. You just got to see if you've got a guess. And send in your answers. Do you know the answer, Craig? Craig knows the answers. He said it's his favorite joke, actually. Oh, hang on. I'm going to fix my earpiece quickly. Yeah, so Tristan knows. Tristan's probably laughing. It's really funny, and I'll tell you and I'll explain the whole process through it. But we'll just see if there perhaps are any South Africans watching that can give away this one. I think it was the first Afrikaans joke. It's not really even an Afrikaans joke I ever learned, and sadly my Afrikaans is not so great. I'm blaming my parents for that because they can barely speak English because they're Australian, so sometimes I struggle to even understand them. And then at school I never paid attention. I was always getting kicked out of class. I was very naughty. Not naughty, I never got suspended or anything like that. I think I was just cheeky, like I still am, as my dad would say. I was told to go and sit outside a lot. So I'm so sorry to all my teachers for causing all the trouble that I did when I was a teenager. I'm older, I'm wiser, but I'm still a clown. Haven't changed a little bit there. Curse, has anybody given an answer? Let's see. Oh, we have an answer. Oh, wonderful. So Shelley, well done to you. Shelley, you got it. You've said that the answer is hectic. The reason why it's hectic is because a gate in Afrikaans is a hek. Well, how do you say it? Craig, you have got hack. Hack. I think hack is the correct way to say it, but because I'm English and I can't speak the language very well, I'd say heck. So H-E-K is a gate, and then of course a tick is a tick. So hectic. Ta-da. So funny, so hilarious, so punny, amazing. Yes, so that was one of my lame jokes for the day. Hang on, I need to get a guarri branch. And this earpiece is not working very well today. Stay in there because the flies are still biting me. I can't break it. You get one. Just a little one today. Just to keep the flies away, because there were lots of them earlier, but they seem to have obviously gone and found themselves a buffalo. No, I just thought it was oxpeckers that were calling. It wasn't. It sounds like a testicular of some sort chatting away in the distance. And I'm sad about our friend the elephant. I was really looking forward to seeing that elephant, but I also don't want to go and be silly and go walking into an area that's very thick and you can't see more than a couple of meters in front of you. That's not very clever. So we shall leave that. Really struggling with my earpiece today. It's not working so great. There's something I'm surprised Steph hasn't tried to make. Is a bush earpiece of some sort, because he also struggles with it every now and then. It falls out. Well, maybe he can create one of those for us. It would be quite nice. So now we're just walking, having a little listen. I'm still swatting flies, keeping them off me because they drive me mental. Should we have a look at a bird? No, it saw us. It was a turtle dove that was coming to land on the dead tree, but then it saw us and said, no, not going anywhere near you. At least we got one new bird to add to our list today, which was quite nice. And it's hot now. It is so hot, I'm going to have to take my jersey off. Let's see if there's any praying mantises here. Yes, we have to do Steph's trick again where we drop the insects out of our sleeves. Let's have a quick look. That's a problem now coming into winter, is that everything is going to only start to get a little bit more active a little bit later. But maybe we get lucky. No, nothing. They've all gone. They've all been eaten by all the birds. I did see one caterpillar this morning. Then I got distracted because I saw the zebra and the giraffe, so I raced on over to them. What else? But there's lots of leaves that are being eaten. They've all got holes in, but I just can't find the insect and animal that's actually doing it, which is a bit of a nightmare. It's not great for us. We want to see them. Let's keep looking. Let's keep looking. Craig, what else are you doing today? We'll ask Craig what he's got planned for the day. Camera test. Very exciting. Okay, that's very nice. So Craig's going to be doing that. I don't know what I'm going to be doing later. I haven't decided. I'm going to be reading up about slugs and how they make their slime. That's something that I'm definitely going to be doing a little bit later. I can't wait, actually. I'm so excited. I want to race back to camp to go and have a look at that. Oh, I have a joke. That's nice. I love jokes. So Kelly has got a joke for me, and the joke is, what do you call a tick that is over the moon? A lunatic. Craig got it! That was from Batman! Go Craig! I didn't, I just repeated what Craig mumbled to me. Nice one! Jeez, come on Craig, give us a couple of jokes. That was brilliant, by the way, Kelly. I'm going to be using that as well. I shall test it on my mom and see if she gets that joke. I'll have to give her a call later. She probably won't get it. But come look here. And now you'll see my thumb is still dirty because I don't know how Brian gets his permanent markers off of his fingers. See something in there? Something's developing inside this bush willow leaf. Isn't that cool? Some form of a cocoon. It doesn't look like it's hatched just yet. Lots and lots of silk, and it pulled the leaf close towards itself. But we'll have to wait and see what this ends up being. I'm trying to have a look here. Ooh, probably a caterpillar of some sort. We're going to keep bumbling around here and see what else we can find. Hopefully the insects wake up. I'd personally like to see a praying mantis today. That is on my wish list. And we're going to now send you back across all the way into the funny man himself, James's vehicle.
I'm afraid that I don't feel very humorous at the moment. We did see Thandi, we did see Bigglesworth, aka Thamba, not far from where we are, but I'm afraid Jigger just couldn't cope with getting signal. So we're going to try and get David in there as soon as possible. He's quite a long way out. I will tell you that both of them are in fine health, and so with any luck we'll manage to get David in there before the end of the drive. And in the meantime, we're enjoying a sighting of some Impalas, obviously, and they are in amongst a gloriously verdant field of Waltheria plants and grasses. Why are his horns so dirty? Why have you got such dirty horns? He's also got a slightly twitchy lip, of course. Now, what's interesting, I think, about this male Impala is the fact that his neck is getting thick. We've headed into the beginnings of the rut, where these Impala will start to replace the very baby Impala as the most vulnerable members of their society, on account of the fact that they will not be concentrating on anything other than sex over the next 2 or 3 months. And that thickening of the neck is brought about by an increase in testosterone. So much like a gym bunny, or what these days passes off as an athlete would look like after an injection or two of anabolic steroids, that's exactly what's going on here, except this, of course, is not an injection, but an increase in very natural testosterone that results in the neck muscles getting much larger. And that's in order that they can cope with the massive, very traumatic bashing of heads together, which is going to take place fairly soon. And then in the background you can hear the monotonous lark. I think it's quite a nice call. I can see why it's called monotonous, though. It does tend to sound a bit monotonous after a while. Isn't that a pretty picture of those Impala? I'm looking forward to going to Cheetah Plains at some stage as well to have a look in those clearings for the interesting birds. I think that's gorgeous. Cole, you say are impala about the same size as a white-tailed deer? I think they're slightly smaller, if I'm not mistaken. I would, and I'm guessing here, I think a white-tailed deer would probably be about the size of, say, a Nyala bull, which weighs up to about 100 kilograms or 220 pounds, and I think that's probably about the size of a white-tailed deer. I'm trying to think if I've ever seen a white-tailed deer, and I think I have. I think I saw one in a few of them in Rocky Mountain National Park. Is that possible? I feel like I should know that. But I think they're just slightly smaller than the white-tailed deer. Let's have one last look at them, and then we'll reverse and see if we can't see the monotonous lark that is making that noise. Ba-cheep-a-cheep. Ba-cheep-a-cheep. I think that's gorgeous. Now, consulting detective, you're the kind of person, of course, who would try and investigate a death, I suppose. And were we to find two impala lying next to each other dead, your question of whether or not they get interlocked by their horns is a good one. I have never seen it, and I don't think it's actually possible. They don't have sufficient curvature or sufficient sort of angle in the horns for them to become interlocked. I guess it might happen every so often, but not like kudu. Kudu get completely intertwined with each other and they're unable to disentangle themselves, and it's not uncommon to find kudu, two bulls lying dead together, interlocked at the horns. But impala much more often break horns or lose eyes or that sort of thing. This is a grizzled old fellow. He won't be his first rodeo, this rut this year. And you can see that he's got a very jaunty way he licks his nose. He's looking forward to this time. Right, let's reverse back a little bit, Herman, and see if we cannot spot the monotonous lark. It's certainly one of the worst insults I think you can pay to a human being is calling them monotonous. It has so many inferences. Now the monotonous lark is somewhere in here. Can you see it, Herman? I cannot see it either. I'm going to have to use the binoculars. Search around this bush over here. Amy, you're wondering if the woodland kingfisher is still with us. You haven't heard one today. Amy, they're actually one of the last to leave. So they're definitely still with us. But you'll find that their breeding will start to slow down now. No, not that bush, this one right in front of us here. It's somewhere around there. Yep, somewhere around there. Just check the grass stalks around. I didn't realize they were quite so hidden. So, Amy, because the breeding has not quite ceased, but because it's not quite as enthusiastic as it was, it means that the need for calling and setting up territories is that much reduced, and so that's why you're not hearing them. Right, I'm going to have to try and call this thing out with my bird app. Give me 1 second. I will find the monotonous lark. It's close by here, it really is. I mean, it can't be more than 30 feet away. Lark. Monotonous. That's mine leaping here. Otherwise I'm going to have to try and flash it. I can't believe we can't see it. Okay, Herman, I'm going to walk in there. Straight towards where you're pointing now. I want to take my binoculars with me. can also hear some button quails. That's so cool. Oh, Larky. Maybe it's further away than I thought it was. Now it's shut up. There it goes, there it is. You got it there? Wonderful! Can you see it?
No.
Okay, I know where it is, I can see it. 1 second. Don't move, bird. Now, I mean, it's not a spectacular looking bird. We all know the larks are not well, they don't look quite like parrots, for example. I can still see it, hang on. Plug myself in. It's still there. Don't move. You got him. Great. Isn't that cool? Oh, that's great. Oh, they're so nondescript, the larks, but I mean, that call is completely unmistakable. And they do go on a bit, don't they? Right, well, while you look at him, let me just find the button quail. He's the only one here. It's quite unusual. Right, I think that what we were hearing there was either a currican, common, or harlequin. Wasn't that one? Wasn't that one either? There, it's a currican button quail. This is what it sounds like. They're just tiny little quails, basically. We'll see if we can find one shortly. Well, at the risk of sounding corny, I think this sighting is getting a little bit monotonous. Let's carry on. See if I can't find the button quail. Now the quails are in here, and what they like to do is lie in the thick grass like this, and they're very difficult to actually see. Just stick the camera into the grassland here, and I might try and flush one again. But they've stopped calling. You know what I think we should do? Once we've had a quick look in here, we'll turn round and go past Gwen's place, which is not far from here, and see if we can't flush one going through that way. No, they've stopped calling in here now. Alright. Let's go back the way. This is wonderful news. David apparently has arrived where Jigger failed horribly about 10 minutes ago. Enjoy.
Okay, this is my first ever leopard sighting in the Kruger. We've got 2 leopards here. I believe it is Thandi and Thamba. They're up in a tree at the moment. A place of safety for leopards. An area filled with lions and hyenas, which could definitely pose a risk to these leopards. So they are comfortably positioned and perched up in what looks like a big beautiful marula tree. He's just repositioning, getting nice and comfortable. They've wedged themselves onto those branches, getting comfortable, and now they can relax. Got some nice warm morning sunshine warming them up. So I'm unfamiliar with these leopards. I'm sure the viewers know them very well. So I would say, looking at them, it looks like we've got perhaps the male on the left. Well, actually, I'm going to put it out to the viewers. Who do we have on the left and who is on the right? The leopard on the left certainly appears to be larger. Look at that paw. That's a massive paw. Of course, males are bigger than females, but this is a mother and her son. Send through your guesses. Who do we have here? Who's on the left and who's on the right? Hashtag Safari Live. Well, it is a Sunday morning, and so I suppose lying about is the thing to do. They've probably had a very busy night. Patrolling the bush, looking for something to catch. Now with the sun rising, I'll make the way up into the tree. Okay, it seems definitely a cub on the right side. White lady eel, how do I feel about my first leopard sighting? Ecstatic. And leopards are incredible. It seems like the cub is active, he's moving around. Seems to be very interested in something. I think he's actually coming down. What is he doing? He's a curious cub. He's coming out of the tree now. Let's see what he's going to do. He spotted something out there, something interesting. You know what? I was hoping for a leopard sighting this morning. Big yawn. Okay, we've got some information from James. Thandi is the oldest daughter of Karula. And Karula, we all know, is one of the most famous leopards in the world. Okay, we've got the cub. It's on the ground. It's moving through the grass. You can see that camouflage really working. What is he up to? Thamba, the curious cub, is about 8 months old, and he seems to be already quite bold. I don't think we can see him now. He's just ventured a little bit too far into the long grass. Mom's keeping a careful eye on her cub. Okay, apparently seems to have spotted a water buck. Mom's just watching. She doesn't seem to be too stressed at this stage. She's still comfortably watching her cub. And he's checking out a water buck. But she's not taking her eyes off of him. She may not have moved a paw, but I can definitely see that she is looking in the direction of her young cub. The cub is still going to be reliant on Mom for almost 2 years. So he's still got a long ways to go. Oh, there we go, we can see her face now. Isn't she beautiful? Look at those eyes. She's vocalizing, but not towards the cub. She seems to be looking in the other direction. Maybe she's calling him back. She's saying, that's enough. Come back to the safety of this tree. But Thamba seems to be a curious cub, and he's still out there investigating the water buck. Our Mom's still up in the tree, keeping an eye on him. Mother leopards are very protective over their young cubs. Now, when he gets a bit older, he will have to... Okay, we're having a look at a big, thick tail, which of course they use for balance. Leopards are incredibly agile and phenomenal tree climbers. Short and thick and powerful. Leopards are capable of dragging prey, even heavier than themselves, right up into trees. She's watching that cub again. He doesn't seem to be obeying her calls. Well, it's heating up now, so it's unlikely that they will be very active. This is sort of the time when leopards close down. They'll move in the cool of the night, and they can save energy, and of course use their brilliant night vision to their advantage. And once the sun rises, they'll sort of make their last moves and then find a comfortable position in which to spend the daylight hours. They've got to find a nice level branch there, something comfortable enough to support her weight. Okay, she seems to look at the tail moving. She is very focused on her cub. What are you doing? But she's still trusting that he knows what he's doing. She's still up in the tree, but not taking her eyes off him at this stage. Well, viewers, I can't even tell you how special this is. This area is famous for its leopard sightings. This is often one of the hardest animals to find in the bush. And it's not necessarily that there are less leopard in the Eastern Cape, but they can be very tough to find. Because in the Eastern Cape we don't have these tall trees. Okay, we've mostly got acacias, thick acacia bush. And so, as I said before, leopards will use that thick cover to avoid other predators like hyenas and lions. But here at Djuma, they are utilizing tall trees. Yeah, a hyena can't climb, and although a lion can climb, it will not be able to reach the branches that a leopard can get to. And so coming up into a tree like this, she has found a place where she can feel safe. Right, we're going to stay with these two beautiful leopard, see what happens to this cub. But we're going to send you over to Tayla now to see what she's got for you.
We are standing amongst one of the worst species of grass that you can get in this particular area. But when I say worse, I'm only just talking about that the animals don't like it in particular. This is yellow thatching grass that is all sprouted up at the moment. And you can see it is even taller than me, some of these massive pieces. Now sometimes you come across huge open areas that are just, this yellow thatching grass has just completely taken over it. We used to see it a lot in Zambia, and the guys would actually go out and slash it and keep it down. It's a bush encroaching species, so again, if you have a look around here, look at the base of this grass, you see that there's very little growing around it. You've just got the grass stems coming out, and then a couple of other smaller plants, but nothing else really. So they kill everything that grows around it. They make the soil very unpalatable, they steal up all the nutrients, and it's not great to have. So it's very important to control things like this. So this is where fires are really, really good for combating yellow thatching grass. We'd use a hot burn, so just a surface burn, so you do it on a nice hot day with a bit of wind to keep that flame burning, and it will just burn the surface of the grass. Normally you do it just before rain, so and typically around sort of September you'll do a big burn in areas like this. It will get rid of it. The ground will be then nice and fertile, waiting for the first rains to hit it. There is one species that utilizes this grass, which I've seen, and I was looking for the eggs, but the broad-banded grass yellow actually lays its eggs on the yellow thatching grass, which is unusual because, like I said, it's not very tasty. I don't know, Craig, should I taste it? Wait, Craig is actually the grass expert. Let me get you a nice piece, Craig. He eats all the Panicum maximum. He's actually a problem because he's now become competition for the other animals out here. Craig, I don't know, hang on. You have this one, because I broke it already. Eat it. Tell me what you think, please. Where are my manners today? Verdict? Grass tasting?
Average.
Average? Why is it average though? Is it texture? I'd give it about a 5 out of 10. Taste?
Taste is just lacking, you know.
And what would you rate it out of 10 though, Craig? Oh, it's a bit bitter.
Yeah,
it's not great. You don't want bitter grass. But a 3 out of 10 for taste for the grass. Crunch. It's got a good crunch though to it, so I'll give that about an 8.5 out of 10. There's definitely a better crunch on here than you find with the Panicum maximum. Of course, we're just talking the biggest load of nonsense. But there are a couple of useful things for yellow thatching grass, and especially in South Africa with the massive Dutch influence that we do have, especially heading down towards the Eastern Cape and towards the west coast. So you're going towards Cape Town, those areas, you'll see a lot of thatched roofs, and it's a big trend on game reserves. Look at all the Galago Lodge as well as Vuyatela. They've got big thatched roofs with massive lightning rods, of course, sticking out of them, so that we can try and not set the roof on fire. So you can dry all of this, and then it becomes great to make roofs out of. And the locals, when they were inhabiting this areas, would have done the same thing. They would have collected lots and lots of it, dried it up, and then made beautiful roofs for themselves. But it's massive and it's robust. I mean, you can pull at it, you can tug at it. It really is a hard, tough grass. It's not going anywhere. And like I said, if you've got masses of areas, reserves will often try and just reduce the population, well, the amount of this grass that's growing around. Not even elephants feed on it. I don't think I've ever seen any animal feasting on it before, but like I say, is you don't really know what's going to happen out here in the bush, and anything is possible. I think if this was left, and this was all the grass that was left about, and we had that terrible drought again, you'd find animals resorting to feeding on it, but the amount of nutrients that are in here are not very great. You heard it from the master, the grass master, that it hasn't got a great taste. Only a 3 out of 10, 8.5 for crunch. And then what did we say? What was the other one? What was 5? Oh, careful, Craig, don't go over backwards. He almost ended on his bottom. He walked into a shrub. Craig, what was 5 out of 10? I've forgotten now. Taste was 3 because it was bitter. Then crunch was 8.5. And then there was something else. But enough about us playing around on the grass. It seems as though those spotted cats are doing the same thing. Let's go across to Dave.
Okay, our leopard Mom has climbed down out of the tree to go and find where her little cub has gone. And we just caught the tail end of them walking off into the thicket. Okay, so we're not going to off-road in this area. And we're going to leave these leopards now as they continue their day. Well, that was awesome. My very first leopard sighting on my very first drive. Yeah, man. Leopards, something you'll never get over. They are so beautiful. And that was a great leopard sighting. As far as leopard sightings go, being a small spotted cat, often they're just in grass and you just get to see ears and a little bit of their backs, and so great to have them up in a tree and active as well. Very happy. Okay. Anna-Marie wants to know the difference between a Cape leopard.
No, she wants to know if you had seen one.
Oh, sorry. Anna-Marie wants to know if I ever seen a Cape leopard. Yes, I have. Now that's a really interesting question, Anna-Marie. Of course, we're up in the Kruger area at the moment, and that's a really interesting thing because in South Africa, leopard found from the Eastern Cape into the Western Cape are now being called a Cape leopard. A Cape leopard is said to be a little bit smaller than the leopards we find up here. So we're talking about maybe 10 or even 20 kilograms less than the leopards you'll find up here. And I think the reason for that is, of course, conflict with man. Okay, over a long period, leopards in the Cape of South Africa have had to adapt to hunting much smaller prey. In this area, in the Kruger National Park, they have been protected for a very long time, and so they are able to hunt what they want to hunt, which is generally medium-sized game. Of course, they can take sometimes really large prey as well, but mostly it's medium, small prey. But moving towards Cape Town, the leopards have had to adapt to hunting much smaller prey as they have had conflict with farmers and man. Of course, if a leopard starts to go for lambs, that could mean trouble for a farmer, whereas a leopard that goes for smaller things like dassies may avoid humans. Now, what's really interesting about the Cape leopard is how they are found almost all over the place in the Western Cape, often even very, very close to humans. And so they have adapted to living very close to humans. And
did you get that?
I didn't get
send it over to Tayla.
Alright, we're going to send you over to Tayla. She seems to have something very cool to show you.
We do, and we're so worried that it's going to disappear, but luckily we've managed to put it on screen. It is a spotted bush snake, which is very cool, living in the broken trunk of a marula tree. So thank you, elephants, for breaking that. Otherwise, we would not have the snake to see. And it is watching us, watching it. And I can't believe that we actually managed to get this. This is amazing. I thought once it had spotted us, and well done to Herbie for seeing this, it was going to zit back straight into its little hole, into all that termite-infested trunk of the tree here. Now this is not a venomous snake. This is actually one of my favorite snakes, and it's really easy to identify. You can see it's got the not relatively big eyes like a boomslang has, but it's got decent sized eyes, sort of a whitish yellow underneath the body, and you can't see it too well, but they're actually on their backs, they've got little black spots on them. So not a venomous one. This is a constrictor, so they've got lots and lots of little teeth which they will use. Once they have caught their prey, they'll then of course wrap their tails around it and suffocate it. But this is so special. Actually, oh no, I'm not going to move because I'm making it scared. No, come back, Snakey! And it's living in its hole. Let's see if I can get another view from this side. Oh no, you can't. That was so amazing. It's the first snake I've seen since I've been here. That is amazing. How cool is that? And it's just living in this entire little home. That's why I say, you know, elephants are really wonderful to have around. Obviously, they can be quite destructive. We know this, but it's important for areas. They'll come through and turn wooded areas and open them up by pulling all the trees down. And then look exactly what they've created. Now you can see quite nicely. Most likely, big Ellie bull has pulled down this branch and snapped it off. It's long since been removed and decomposed by the termites, and it's made for a perfect shelter for that snake to live in. And it'll live up here, it'll go and raid birds' nests, and it'll eat a variety of different things. Like they eat lots of lizards and frogs, so you often see them around camp. Really cool snakes, very fast, very quick, difficult ones if you do the kind of person that catches snakes. We don't. A very difficult one to handle, but a really nice snake. Probably my second favorite snake after the brown house snake, and beautiful too. Well, very lucky to see my first snake here finally at Safari Live, and I'm glad it was that one as well. Next up needs to be a puff adder. We've got to get a puff adder next, but I'm going to send you across to James, who has found a bunch of flowers.
Every so often one finds something in the bush that is easy to identify. This was not one of those occasions, but I will tell you that I have identified this. After I've told you that I think that Tayla's being unkind about my second favourite grass, first favourite here, the yellow thatching grass. I think it tastes better than a 3 out of 10. But you know, Tayla has odd tastes in various things, and I'm very pleased that she's found a spotted bush snake. I think that's wonderful. Right, over here, we had one of those rare occasions where I stopped, I didn't know what it was, and the very first page I opened my book to, there it was. It's called a canary nettle, or Sphidamnocarpus prurinens. Sphidamnocarpus prurinens, say that after, well, just after a night, basically. Wake up in the morning and say Sphidamnocarpus prurinens, and I suspect you will have some trouble. And what it is it's a creeper, and you can see that it's growing here, if I move it around a bit, on top of a Strychnos madagascarensis plant. So there it is, and it's wrapped itself all the way around the Strychnos plant. That's this one here. And that's how it grows. So Sphidamnocarpus prurinens, the canary nettle. I don't know why it's called a nettle. It certainly doesn't have very spiky feel to the leaves. My hands don't feel at all pained by its experience with the canary nettle, but there it is. And apparently it has a winged fruit, but it hasn't started to fruit yet because it is still in flower. So eventually these, I suspect, will become the winged fruits. Herman, would you like to say Sphidamnocarpus prurinens?
Sphidamnocarpus prurinens?
Sphidamnocarpus prurinens.
That's a tongue twister.
Try it again. Come on.
Sphidamnocarpus prurinens.
There we go. Got it. Well done. Good job. Not an easy one, that. Right, let me plug myself in. There we go. Alright, on we go. Athena, or Minerva, if I might be so bold, you say that the plant reminds you somewhat of, honeysuckle. It does look a little bit like honeysuckle, I agree. But honeysuckle's one of those plants that around the world means different things. It's like jasmine. We get various kinds of jasmine here. You'll get various kinds of jasmine wherever you are. And often they're not related. They just happen to look a little bit the same. Righty, what my last act of this drive is going to be going towards the hyena den that was empty earlier today to see if I can spot those cubs. While we do that, David, to continue the equid or equestrian theme that we began with this morning, has got a bird that has an equestrian theme.
Well, James checks out the hyena den. We have a saddle-billed stork. We're not far off from a small dam, and he's just slowly making his way through the grass. I think he's going to go towards that dam and see what he can find. Maybe some breakfast. Okay, we're going to move forward now, see if we can find him again. Seems to be walking through the bush. We're going to roll forward carefully and slowly. Don't want to scare it. Seems to be quite shy, so we're keeping our distance, but we're going to slowly move towards it and see if we can get him back and get a visual of him. Yeah, we're just sneaking quietly. The saddle-billed stork. He seems to be giving us the slip. As he's slowly moving through the grass like this, he's also hunting, looking for anything it comes across, from small insects, even little rodents. Anything that he can find to snack on. There we go. Oh, and it's taking off. Well, Suzanne has just asked whether I can make any bird calls as we watch the saddle-billed stork fly off. And the answer is no. I only have one call. Okay. And that goes, Kia! And that's about it. So I'm not Tayla. I'm not going to be able to produce magical bird sounds all the time. I can produce variations of Kia, but that's about it. So I'm not your guy when it comes to amazing bird calls. Okay, so our saddle-billed stork has flown off now. He's perhaps going to go look for another suitable area to try and find some breakfast. We're going to get going. See what else we can find. It's starting to warm up now, and so is the action. We've just had oh, look at that, it's a tree squirrel. Dave, I don't know if you're going to be able to get that little tree squirrel. Oh, there's something we don't get in the Eastern Cape. Okay, he's disappeared now into the grass. Of course, very risky for a little tree squirrel to be out in the open. Lots of birds of prey around. He's going to try and minimize his time out in the open and get back into the thicket and make his way towards a nice tree for safety. Something very interesting about tree squirrels that Tayla actually told me about yesterday is that their babies, although they're born altricial, naked and helpless, they can actually almost leave their mother at only 19 days old, which I find to be crazy. That is a very, very quick growth spurt. Okay, our little tree squirrel has run off, and we're gonna hit the road again. He's probably making his way up a tree. And he will continue his day doing tree squirrel things. thank you for spending time with me on my interview drive, and I'm going to say goodbye. I'll see you again this afternoon for the sunset safari. Cheers.
Well, we've come down to where the hyena den is, and unfortunately there are no hyenas here. There is a marula tree, though, in which you have spotted a hornbill. Well done, Herman. We can call that Herman the Hornbill, if you like. Very nice. We'll just quickly show you the empty hole, which is over there. And I just think it's because Mum's not here. You can see it's very clearly being used by the scuffed nature of the soil in front of the hole. But no one's around at the moment. I suspect the little babies are sheltering in the back there. So we'll just do a little drive around it for the last few minutes. If you are availed or can avail yourself of the dam cam, apparently there are elephants there. I just won't make it there in time to show them to you. So once we're off air, you can go off and have a look at them. I'm not sure what they're doing, but it's so lovely that that water hole is so full. I suspect there'll be quite a lot of swimming when it heats up again. And I think that it will start to heat up again. I don't believe that we're actually genuinely into the cold season yet, by any stretch of the imagination. And I imagine those of you living in the Northern Hemisphere must be feeling quite excited, because the first few shoots, I suppose the early shoots of the spring, must be starting to stick their heads up. I know my sister, who lives in London, she's got a little garden which she likes to term her estate, which is actually sort of 3 or 4 flower boxes on a very, very small veranda. I know that she plants bulbs and things, and the bulbs, I think, are sprouting now. So that makes her feel much better about the dastardly state of the weather in that part of the world. Here, it's still looking very summery, and I was just thinking back, to when I started guiding in the year 2000, way back in the dim mists of time. It was, as I've explained before, during a very flooded time, and there were many cyclones thrashing into the East African coast from the Mozambican Channel. And what those did was they created floods, of course, but also when I started at the lodge at which I worked, it was the 1st of March, in fact. And I remember for months afterwards, or certainly at least 2 months afterwards, walking through long grass, being covered in that sticky panicum juice that I showed you earlier on. So it's not that unusual for this time of the year to have such long and sort of summery looking vegetation. Fine memories, of course. And so nice that yellow thatching grass has come up. There's something very peaceful about watching it swaying in the wind. There's a woodland kingfisher for you, calling. I forget who it was who was asking if they'd gone. And it was you, Amy. Thank you very much for that. Come on, call again, bird. No, but they are around. I've seen a number of them. And how very kind of you. Thank you for your kind welcomings back of me. It's very nice to be back. It's always nice to go away for a little while and come back and see the changes. And it is never the same when you return. Alright everyone, that's going to be it for the drive. It's been marvellous to be back here. Big thank you to Kirsten and Louise in the final control. Geraldine cheesecaking away there as well. And of course a nice warm welcome to David. Thank you for being nice to him. And the other David filming him. Tayla, I'm afraid, ran out of batteries. We will see you this afternoon. Until then, thank you Herman, and bye-bye.